Hi, welcome to You Belong Here, the place to be for positive stories of immigrant women from all around the world. You will meet inspiring women sharing their successes, challenges, and how they are living meaningful American dreams beyond professional and financial success. I am Portia Chen Silverberg. This production of You Belong Here is coming to you from Palo Alto, California. My guest today is Guisselle Nunez. Guisselle is focused on helping organizations and individuals achieve success through enduring marketing and personal branding strategies. She is an award-winning marketing professional and author of the upcoming book, Take Charge of Your Brand. Guisselle!
Portia!
Congratulations on your book coming up.
Thank you.
So exciting.
I'm very excited. But first, let me just say thank you for the invitation to be with you this evening and really for everything that you're doing to help improve the lives of others and to showcase just the great work that all of these women are doing in the community. So thank you for all of your work.
Well, thank you for saying that. I think we all lift each other up and all lift one another up. And I think it's really important to hear stories of immigrant women, especially immigrant women like you, who not only has achieved success professionally, you've done so much community giving and volunteerism, and now you're really stepping up your game and publishing a book, right? Because we all say we have a book inside of us, and I'm publishing a book as well in a little while. But you know, most people really don't take it to that next level. And I'm especially excited to hear about your book because I think that's actually part of the fascinating thing about this show is because I'm hoping by the end of the show, viewers who are watching will have picked up some really solid good tips on how to rebrand themselves in this country because we all need to know about branding, of course, individuals, professionals, and businesses, but especially immigrants. I think you would agree, everyone who comes here, we're starting over no matter what age, right? And it is really important to know how to brand ourselves and how to really just step up and be seen, be heard, and really just be at the table. And you have done that. So I would love to hear about your journey. I know you came to the States as a 7-year-old?
As a 7-year-old.
Tender age of 7.
So I had an advantage, Portia. I mean, because my parents came to the U.S. when I was 7, my brother was 5. So my advantage was that I assimilated into this culture very quickly. My parents focused on our assimilation, and they knew that our success was that we needed to speak English as quickly as possible. So that was our focus. So, but again, I came when I was 7. If I had come at 12 or 15, that may have been a different experience. So I don't have an accent, but I speak Spanish. So I have this best of both worlds where I'm able to go in and out easily, but yet at the end of the day, I still had to figure out how to assimilate.
Yes. So tell me about that. As a 7-year-old, did you speak English a little bit already?
No. So my father spoke English because he worked in the corporate world. He was the CEO of a manufacturing company in Nicaragua. So he made a lot of trips to the U.S. He studied in the U.S. also, actually. So he had an advantage. He already understood the culture, but he also knew that an education was just primary, number one, right? But before you got that, you had to learn English, you had to assimilate, and so there was no Spanish TV at home, nothing of the sort. It was all English, 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 which I have to say, I think that worked.
But you still speak Spanish.
I speak Spanish, but you know what our advantage was? My grandmother lived with us. My paternal grandmother helped to raise us, and she came when she was in her 50s.
Wow.
Right? She passed away when she was 88, so she lived here since her probably, I think it was probably mid-50s. So again, you're in your mid-50s, very different world, right? It's harder to learn the language. So we spoke Spanglish to her. And so, but because of her, during our summer breaks, she helped us to make sure that we maintained our Spanish language skills.
That's great.
So that was an advantage for us. So, but again, English was still primary. So definitely primary. So
I've actually talked to a lot of immigrant women or men too who have a real deep regret that their parents felt the same way, that they really felt strongly for the kids to assimilate, become as American as fast as possible. So they lost the language, right?
Right.
A lot of Filipinos, and
Yes.
I mean, it's not just Spanish-speaking immigrants.
Right.
So that's wonderful. You got a chance to hang on to your Spanish.
Yeah, no, we had that advantage. Otherwise, I'm not sure that we would have been able to keep the language, our primary language.
So did you have any trouble in school when you first started out?
You know, not necessarily, other than the normal. Although I have to say that when I came, when my brother and I came, ESL was taking out the 3 kids in the classroom who didn't speak English. They had a special hour or 2 hours of tutoring where we even watched Sesame Street, but we were still embedded into an all English classroom. And it was actually, it worked out because there were a few Latino kids who were, you know, Mexican American or maybe even Mexican immigrants, I don't know, but they ended up being my translators with the teacher.
Oh, interesting.
And I still remember some of them to this day, that they would be, so I think, so 2nd grade and 3rd grade, I had translators.
Wow.
My little friend, classmates who were bilingual were my translators.
Wow.
But that's, I think, what helped to just embed us into the language quickly.
Right.
And so really by the 4th grade, I was
Fluent.
I was fluent.
Right.
So there was not really a problem, but that was a different experience back then.
Yeah.
So, you know, versus now you have the, you know, bilingual classes and so on and so forth. So, but that wasn't the case in 1982.
Sure,
So
sure.
1983.
A lot has changed in education.
Right.
And ESL, I think, is a very interesting topic on its own.
That's right, for another day.
Yeah. Because we could be here for a while.
Exactly.
Okay, so then you assimilated, everything was going well, and did you land here, I think you said, right in San Jose?
Right. Well, we lived in Santa Clara, the city of Santa Clara, for about 2 years, 3 years, and then we moved to East San Jose. So we were really raised in East San Jose. So we went to the local schools there, and you know, we were again, I think, fortunate that my parents had higher education, you know, degrees. So they knew, and they came from single mothers, absentee fathers in Nicaragua. So their professional success came from their educational focus and meeting those educational goals as well. So they understood that wherever you went in the world, and the only thing you take with you is your education.
Right.
So they knew that our education was primary. So even though we went to East San Jose schools, which maybe, you know, they're not perhaps the best, and we may have known that, but you focus, you're with the right crowd, you take the right classes. You know, my brother and I were both able to go to, you know, Santa Clara University for our undergrad with scholarships and grants and loans or whatever it took, but we went, and you know, exactly, and we got it done. Exactly.
Yeah.
So even though I have an interesting immigration, I mean, I have an interesting, not an immigration, well, it is an immigration story, that I almost didn't make it to Santa Clara because my parents had applied for, you know, they had applied for political asylum back in 82, 83.
Right.
But INS, which at that time, so at that time it was INS called it was Immigration and Naturalization Services.
Yes,
now it's
yes,
the Homeland Security Department.
Right.
They lost our paperwork. So in 1992, when I get accepted to Santa Clara, I may not be able to attend because now I have to pay international fees. So thankfully, a government teacher found out, had my dad call Congressman Don Edwards' office at that time.
Wow.
And they took up our case. They helped find our paperwork. And in 1 year or 6 months, we became residents. And then I was able to go to Santa Clara. So that's a story that sometimes I forget.
Yeah.
That again, part of this assimilation and this, you know, citizenship process involves this other world of paperwork and managing that.
Lots of paperwork.
Right.
So that's actually a very happy story,
It
right?
is. It
that's
is.
when the system worked.
Right.
And you had a really enlightened and caring elected official
Yes.
who
Yes.
helped out.
Yes.
And that's elected officials at their best.
Exactly.
Helping their constituents.
Exactly. Helping improve the lives of others, and
Yes.
we weren't even able to vote, right?
Wow, exactly. Oh, that's beautiful.
So
that's very hopeful, right? Because
Right.
that's what this American
right.
country is really.
Part of that American dream.
The American
as you
dream. That's
say.
what it's supposed to be about.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, that's so great. So you went to school for marketing?
No, I
No?
got my bachelor's
wait.
in history and Italian because I wanted to
Wow.
be a teacher.
Oh.
But that option, plan A didn't work out, so I didn't have a plan B, so I really just stumbled into community relations, which then led me into public relations and marketing. And then at some point I said, okay, this is what I want to do. I like to help communicate the value of this product or of this organization. I like selling the idea of that this product is going to help you do something. So then that's when I went to get my master's degree in integrated marketing communications, and then that's where I really, I think that's when I started to really build my brand into what I felt I wanted to be known for, which was a marketing professional, and then also a community volunteer and an advocate. So that all came slowly, right, with time and finding your passion and things of that nature.
But you were very strategic and very deliberate about that. Wow.
Right.
How did you come to that conclusion?
Well, I mean, I think just to backtrack a little bit, and I share this in my book, Take Charge of Your Brand. I say take charge of your brand because sometimes we don't realize that we have a brand that other people know us for. They use words, adjectives to describe us already. You may not know what those are. So part of this exploration and this journey of owning and managing your brand is understanding how other people describe you, and then you figuring out whether that's how you want to be described. And so, so what happened with me was that my husband was an elected official. So he was the mayor of San Jose, big position. And so now we're married, and now I have to figure out who I am within this very important, position that he has and the work that he does. But I didn't want to just be known as
the wife. Right.
That just wasn't going to be me.
Not you.
I mean, we're a power partner, and I'm going to be supportive, but I have to figure out my own path and how I'm going to be supportive just as a power partner as well. Because I have to build my confidence, I have to know who I am, right? And what I bring to the table. So part of that branding journey for me started then, where I needed to figure out my identity and my brand, but there weren't really a lot of resources.
No, not
18 years ago, 19 years ago. So I kind of just stumbled along and tried to figure it out. And at some point I thought, I'm going to be known to be a marketing professional. I want to be a community advocate. And so you just stumble through that. And then at some point I figured out, this was my strategy. Oh, this is really related to how you also market a product, because you're also a product.
Right.
So I just put the pieces together, and that's when I started to build. That's when I decided I wanted to share this strategy of how to build and own your brand with others. So that's sort of where that journey started, though.
That's so great. And I think you worked for PBS at one point too.
I worked for KQED. Yes.
We have that in common.
The local public media channel.
Local public media channel.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Exactly.
That's right. So that's part of your community relations path too.
Right. I've worked in the public and in the private sector doing marketing communications, and I think again, I figured out at some point that I could sell ice to Eskimos. So part of that is again that I was able to marry my love and passion for marketing communications because what that has in common with personal branding is that you're helping to communicate someone or something and their value. And once you're able to communicate that, everything else falls into place.
So I have a question for you. I've spoken with quite a few women lately who are embarking on their encore career.
Yes.
Right? They've had a very full life, very successful career in corporate America, and they're at a point where they're thinking, I think there's more to life than this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very successful, but I'm not looking for another promotion.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking around to see what else can I do? How
Right.
can I make a difference?
Right.
And in the context of immigrant women, they're the ones saying, you know, this country has given me so much. I really want to give back, but
Right.
what can I do? And they may be thinking, maybe nobody would take me because for whatever reasons. So that's where I think your book will be really helpful, perhaps, and this whole very deliberate thinking around branding, and especially branding oneself,
Right.
is just critical.
Right.
So what are
Right.
some tips you may have for someone going through kind of a reevaluation of their own branding at a midlife place?
Well, all of those topics you mentioned, I was just thinking, okay, that's chapter 9, that's chapter 8,
All right.
that's chapter 3. But I think I have two thoughts. First, so I lay out in the book, so without taking, so whether you're an immigrant or not,
Right.
but really it is going to be harder. There's a bit more of, there's a few more barriers, right, as an immigrant, especially an adult immigrant.
Right.
Who wasn't raised here,
Right.
to perhaps, I think we have to do a little more work to tear down some of those barriers that are either put up by the community,
Yes.
you know, for us, I guess, to try to topple down, or sometimes we put them up ourselves.
Sure.
So we have gender barriers that we put up. We have our own cultural barriers, or the ways, or the way that we were raised.
Brought up. Yep.
Right? Don't promote. That's bragging.
Yep. Yep.
You know, just keep your head down. People will notice you. But what I realize is that that's not the case. You have to learn how to, again, communicate that value. So we have to get over those barriers.
Absolutely.
So that we can then say, yes, I am confident. Yes,
And how do they get over that barrier?
So one, in terms of the strategies, I always say, so there's 3 strategies in the book. So one is you plan, second assess, second is express. Planning means understand what it is that you want to do or where you want to go.
Okay.
Is it that I want to gain more visibility in this community or in this company, as an example? Or do I want to become the director of a department or the vice president of something, right? Understand where it is that you want to go.
Okay.
Then you have to do some self-assessments. Part of that is understanding what value you bring to this group that you want to grow into. What is it that, how is it that people describe me? Part of that, again, if they're saying that you're organized, you're really organized, Portia, but you want to be known as a leader, where's the disconnect? What is it that you're not doing to let them know that you have these leadership skills that you want to that you want to share with them?
Right.
Okay, so the assessment takes a little bit of time,
Sure.
and there's some very specific there's some very specific exercises in the book of how to go through that. And then expression is then figuring out how are you going to let people know about the value that you bring, about who you are.
Right.
Part of, for someone who wants to now, which is if they're in the next chapter of their life and they want to do more community engagement, part of what I talk about in the book in a chapter called Finding Your Brand Purpose is, which is a little bit different than planning, what it is that you want to do. Perhaps I want to grow into this other role, or I want to be more visible. Part of it is understand what it is that your mission is. What is it that you want to do to help improve the lives of others? If community work is what you want to do, and being clear about what that is. Maybe it's helping with translation services. Maybe that's your expertise. Where are those organizations that would need those types of services? So there's a lot of different ways that you can give back, but what's in here? What speaks to you? What gets you excited? What gives you energy? So that's part of finding your brand purpose. Your brand purpose is this. It's showcasing the good work that other immigrant women are doing to help improve the lives of their community members. So you're doing that through your book, your show, and things. So you found your passion. So that's what I would say are at least some tips to really think about.
Right, that's great. And that's also the same tip for community involvement, it sounds
Exactly.
like.
That's
Really
exactly.
find out what your passion is,
Exactly.
and then explore what's out there,
Right.
and get out there, right?
Exactly.
Got to explore.
Yes.
Can't do it all from your own home.
No, exactly, but you really got to be clear about what's in here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What is it that I am passionate about?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
what about those immigrants who come here as adults, and they were former engineers or doctors, lawyers? We've heard those stories, right?
Yes.
They come here, and because of their language or culture, for whatever reasons, they are the taxi drivers or maybe Lyft drivers these days, and doing the service industry. They're doing so many things that's just below their professional skills.
Right.
So it's a real waste of human capital as well as spirit, right? Human spirit, to be doing something that's so not challenging and fulfilling.
Right.
So do you have any advice for those folks?
I just think of my parents' story. As I mentioned, that my dad was the CEO of a manufacturing company. He was an attorney by trade. And he and my mom was an HR professional at a bank, at the National Bank. They came there, again, even though you can take your education at anywhere in the world, that doesn't mean that it's going to be necessarily accepted. That degree from that other country may not is count. Probably not going to be accepted here, as an example.
Right.
So knowing and understanding that, my parents knew that they just had to get started somewhere. So my parents went from CEOs or executives at these different companies to, at that time, they were making floppy disks at the local Dyson company in Santa Clara.
Wow.
So cleaning floppy disks, waking up at 4 a.m. and
that's the person I'm talking about.
Exactly. But so that was their first job, and they knew that had to be their first entree into
American society.
Exactly, American society, but they had to figure out what was their plan, right? So without even knowing it, you have a plan. They have a plan. They had a plan. So my dad didn't have time. He realized he wanted to study and to take the bar, but he didn't have the time.
Sure.
Because he had to feed the family.
Sure.
So, but they still had a plan.
Okay.
So I would say, what is your plan, though? Because this option A may not have worked, but then they started their own businesses. Right? So then their business became service oriented. That was related to legal services or accountant. Actually, my dad was also an accountant too. So that's what he ended up doing. My mom ended up opening up a travel agency.
Wow.
So again, what's your plan? I think you have to have a plan and then figure out where those resources are.
So that actually makes a lot of sense. That's why so many immigrants start their own business.
Right.
Because they just cannot go into the same level of profession that they have back home.
Exactly.
But also goes to say how there's so many successful immigrant business owners that are adding to this country, to the richness,
to the economy,
and the
exactly. Exactly.
So that's really cool.
And they're very successful. Many of them are very successful.
Yes.
So as my parents were, and we were very fortunate that was the case. But I think all in all, you still have to have a plan.
And if they don't have one.
And if they don't have one, I would say you're going to have to, if you're serious about changing that brand or reinventing yourself, you're going to have to figure out what it is that you want to do. And it may not be an engineer again, but what's your option B? There has to be an option B.
There has to be.
So.
And so if I recall, you said education, hugely important. Because I think when we were talking earlier, cracking the code of feeling a sense of belonging.
That's right.
Being a part of your community right here where you work and live. I think having education is hugely important.
Right.
Speaking English is very important.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And what else? Anything else?
Well, I would say
having a plan, yes.
Right. So yes. So definitely having a plan of what it is that you want to achieve in this new life. And I was going to say one more thing, and I just forgot, Portia.
It's in the book.
It's in the book, chapter 10. No, but I think really for those who want to, I think the last piece for those, not all immigrants come with a sense of volunteer work and civic engagement that just depends on the country you're from
Exactly.
and your values and how the culture values volunteer work. But I think that if that's something that you want to do, you can do it, but really dig deep to see what it is that you want. What is it that you find that you want to share with others that can help improve their lives as well.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, how sometimes maybe older people, older immigrants who really don't understand how nonprofits work in this country. I mean, it's a phenomenal, robust industry, right? But there's no other country like ours that has such an amazing sector that's devoted to social services and community-based organizations. So maybe do you have any tiny suggestion that we can steer people towards those local nonprofits doing great work, such as the Hispanic Foundation? That's
right.
That's doing such great work, and they are.
That's right. I think my example, and I think I shared this with you when we had coffee a long time ago, was I think my parents understand or understood the value of volunteerism, but it's not necessarily something that they did when they were in Nicaragua.
Right.
But they understand the concept of it, but then they worked 7 days a week, so that wasn't their focus. But what I'm finding is that through my involvement, then I bring them along. I take them to events like the Hispanic Foundation's annual ball, October 20th. But so
Ron can pay us later.
That's right. Ron can pay us later. But I bring them along to that.
That's how you
other organizations I'm involved with, I bring them along.
So that's a really good tip and good point to end on, is maybe younger generation, people who are involved in local community, they can help to bring their relatives and families and friends, bring them into the community service.
Exactly.
So I so wish we can talk longer.
Thank you,
this is
Portia.
it. I'm so grateful you came on the show. And now to you, viewers of this show, Guisselle and I have talked about a lot of wonderful things. We would love to hear from you, because I'm curious, what is one thing maybe that resonated with you? And what action are you inspired to take? Let's continue the conversation. Please leave a comment at youbelongherefoundation.org. You Belong Here is committed to infuse a plethora of positive immigrant women's stories and start new conversations in our community. I am Portia Chen Silverberg. Thanks for watching. And remember, you deserve to be seen, be heard, and belong, because you belong here. Thank you. And thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Whether you're dead, broke, or rich from inheritance, doesn't really matter, we're made of the same sediment. Whether you got a family or single parenting, or you're Asian, African, European, or American, whether you pray to God or atheist is irrelevant, 'cause what you got inside is the same as all your preference.